Welcome back to The Perspective. We're talking about Internet of Things with Sonita Lontoh, a Silicon Valley tech executive focusing on Internet of Things. June this year, you were invited by the White House and hosted by President Barack Obama to talk about on the event of Global Entrepreneurship Summit 2016. Tell us about that.
That event was amazing, so basically the White House invited, I believe, about 700 entrepreneurs from around the world.
Wow.
700 entrepreneurs from, they said, 192 countries, and
including Indonesia.
Including Indonesia, and I believe there's a contingent of 10 people, 10 entrepreneurs from Indonesia, and actually I met some of them, very inspiring. But from my perspective, it really showcased, kind of the Obama administration effort to leverage, I think they truly believe they want to leverage technology and entrepreneurship, not only for diplomacy, but also to help countries around the world kind of up their standards of living. I think that's really what the administration truly believed in. And so my experience during the event, there's so many of these young entrepreneurs from Thailand, from Asia, Africa, just amazing people that you've never heard of. I mean, of course, we had all the famous Silicon Valley people were there as well. Yep. Like Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. Everyone was there. But what was most amazing was all these entrepreneurs working on very important projects, and most of them are focusing on social impacts. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs from Africa who are trying to give access to Africans to be able to do businesses. There's an entrepreneur, I believe from Jordan, who's trying to help women, I guess, in the Middle East to be able to be entrepreneurs. There's so many of them, and actually on one of the main stage, they had these 3 entrepreneurs interviewed by President Obama and Zuckerberg, and it was very funny because one of them, she is an entrepreneur, I believe, from Peru. She said, "I cannot believe that you would be interviewing me." I mean, of course, right? Because it's not them interviewing the president, but the president interviewing them. And so, what I really learned from that event was just there's so many young people that you and I have never heard of working on very important things, around the world in a lot of developing countries actually that are just doing really great work. So it was very inspiring.
Oh, and I also understand that this is part of President Obama's U.S. ASEAN Connect initiative.
Actually, U.S. ASEAN Connect was an initiative that he and the 10 presidents from the ASEAN countries announced in February of this year.
Correct.
But during the event, during this Global Entrepreneurship Summit, I think the White House wanted to showcase ASEAN as one region where, American investors should consider, because I think there is a feel that ASEAN as a region is a very robust, diverse, and very kind of up and coming, but maybe have not gotten the same attention as, let's say, some of the other regions such as China or India, which are the usual kind of suspects of where Americans think of when they want to go abroad. So the U.S. ASEAN Connect initiative is really a U.S. government, under President Obama's administration initiative to enable more of this business-to-business, people-to-people kind of exchange that would increase, the kind of global cross-collaborations between the U.S. and the 10 ASEAN countries. So actually my participation at the summit was on a panel, consisting of several entrepreneurs from, Indonesia, from I believe Vietnam, from the Philippines, and also from Malaysia, to talk to the U.S. audience on what are some of the themes and trends going on in this region, and why should they actually, come here?
Right. And this is also part of the small pieces of puzzle under President Barack Obama's Asian pivot. Now, before we get into that, as there's been a change of administration, which will take place soon, I would like to have your perspective on gender equality here in the industry, in the tech industry. You mentioned earlier about you're very glad to see more and more women entrepreneurs have come up into the technology industry. And what are your views on this, Sonita? Do you see there's a rise, there's an increased number of more women tech exec like yourself, or more entrepreneurs just emerging, women entrepreneurs from around the world, not just in the US.
Right. So I would say as a percentage, sure, women is still a very small percentage. I think in business in general, because I heard I think only 3% of the Fortune 500 CEOs are women. I think the board about 15%, slightly better, but still, I would say overall. It can keep improving, but I think it has improved from, let's say, 20, 30 years ago. So right now, we see some of the women executives, in technology who are more vocal about this, such as, of course, Cheryl, from Facebook, and then we see IBM has a female CEO as well, Ginny Rometty. So we see more and more women in this leadership position, but I would say we still need more. And what that means, it actually starts very early, from the kind of like family environment, so if parents, schools, parents, teachers, neighbors, communities encourage women to go into STEM, into like math and science projects, tell them that it's cool, and then these women can see some role models, not just the aspirational one like the Sheryl Sandbergs of the world, but people 1, 2, or 3 steps above them. They can see, there is like someone, 2 years older than me.
Immediate role model.
Exactly, immediate role model who are like, like seems to be doing well in science, then I want to get into science as well.
Do you feel that there is an effort by the industry itself to promote more women to come up, more and more women to actually come up and perform?
Yep. So I think we have to be very careful about that, because to be honest with you, I'm not a proponent of quotas.
Right.
Like in certain countries, actually they require it. Like I believe in the Scandinavian countries, there is a quota from the government that require women to be in certain positions. Right. I understand, where quota makes sense, but I think at the same time, quota can totally undermine someone, because then other people might think, you get to that position because there's a quota, right? I would say right now what companies do to encourage more women is they have programs, they have sponsorship programs. It's a formal program in some of the big companies to pair kind of high potential women with, the high ranking executives in a kind of sponsor mentoring relationship. Right. And I do want to distinguish the difference between a mentor and a sponsor here, because a mentor is someone that you exchange ideas with, but a sponsor is someone who will actually put his or her reputation on the line to get you to the next position that will enable you to, like be promoted or move up. So I think companies, are starting to recognize that. So they have sponsorship programs. They try to formalize it, so that the women, especially some of these women are young women, they don't feel uncomfortable, dealing with high-ranking executives who are, most of the time are male, right? And then the other thing, the other thing that they also try to do is trying to integrate more of a work and life. And what that means is, because there's always this conversation about work-life balance. Do I do work or life? And the truth is, I don't think there is either or. I think it depends on the timing, particular time in your career or your journey. Sometimes it's 6-50, sometimes it's 60-40, 70-30, sometimes it's the flip, right, depending on what's going on. But what many companies have tried to do is trying to lessen the pain points of like people trying to balance this work-life balance thing by enabling, certain things to be available, let's say on the campus, such as daycare centers, or I don't know, doctors, gyms. So they're just trying to like help so that the women don't have to like run home at like 5 to like, pick up her kids or something. All right.
Very quickly, last question, Sonita.
Yep.
We go back to that Asian pivot that we mentioned earlier. We all know President-elect Donald Trump is taking place or taking over the White House and as president this coming January. And how is that going to affect this Asian pivot, and how do you think it's going to impact the current relations that has been forged with under President Obama's administration?
Of course, I want to be very careful with whatever I'm saying, because this is a very new administration to be, and if anything, he hasn't even appointed who are the people who would be in his cabinet. But of course, when we look at his campaign rhetorics, I think many people are a little bit concerned, just worried, because what he had been saying during the campaigns could be concerning, right? Regarding, how America would deal with with the world, including Asia. But I'm one that subscribe to more of a positive outlook. I do believe when you look at Donald Trump, even he's a businessman from New York City. You cannot be in New York City and not be kind of a global, international-minded person. But I think he would probably put America first, maybe more so than many other presidents. So America interest will be number one, which I think makes sense because he's the U.S. president. But then I'm hopeful that I think once he becomes president in 2017 in January, I think he will put people in place that will be more moderate and more reasonable, and I really do hope that he will also cross the line to try to work together with the Democrats, even though he actually has a Republican Congress right now, like both House and Senate. So things should be very easy for him to get things done. But there is still kind of the other big party in the U.S. that he and his administration would have to work with. So I would say, to answer your question, everyone is kind of waiting and seeing, but I am cautiously optimistic.
All right, and we know we will talk again with you next year and see how that has panned out and any progress. Especially, we'd like to focus more on Asia, in Southeast Asia, and Indonesia for that matter, as the Jokowi administration is now focused on towards that direction, digital economy, expanding its bandwidth. So we'll see how that has progressed the time you'll return here and speak to us. Thank you very much, Sonita.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
All right, that has been my discussion on Internet of Things with Sonita Lontoh, the tech executive based in Silicon Valley that's focused on Internet of Things. We'll talk to her again soon. Stay with us. Thank you for watching.